then Grace. She looked just like her big sister, but with her own head of dark hair.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. We are so grateful to have Tate on today to talk about her sweet Elowen. I'm so glad that she reached out because this is something that we are grateful for this community. So Tate, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me on.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your family, how your family looks right now, and maybe when Elowen was born.
Yeah, so my husband's name is Chris. We met in college and we've been married for the last 7 years. We first lived in Panama City, Florida, and then moved to Birmingham, Alabama about 5 years ago when my first daughter was born. Her name is Elowen. We call her Avie for short.
Oh, cute.
And yeah, she's 4.5. And then we have a 1-year-old. She's about 18 months. Her name is Mariel Joy. And we live in a little kind of close-knit community outside of Birmingham. Chris works as a website developer at a really large church in our area. And then my background is in medical social work.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I have not been able to, or I just have been staying home with the girls since Mariel was born because of COVID and because of being pregnant with her and just.
It's too much. Yeah.
A combination of a lot of things. So I've been staying home, I guess, for the last 18 months. And we're really involved in our church and in our community here. We just really love it in Birmingham.
That's wonderful. That sounds like you have a really nice neighborhood and really nice little community in your area. That's great. Any fun things you guys like to do in your spare time? Any hobbies, that type of thing?
Yeah, we're just out, we're outside a lot, having play dates with friends, and we love going to the movies and just, getting together, grilling and things like that with friends. I'm really into all the pop culture things and keeping up with
Oh, really?
all the shows and books and movies. Yeah,
nice.
Celebrity stuff.
Good fun.
Yeah. And then Chris, he loves having a project all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a dirt bike right now he's been working on for like months, and he's just always busy with something.
Just fiddling with some things.
Yes.
And I'm sure your girls keep you quite busy.
They do. We're, we're always on the go with them. My 4-year-old is an extreme extrovert, so I just have to keep her with people all the time so she can get all of it out.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
It is fun. Mm-hmm.
And so as a bit of context, how long ago was Elowen born at the time of this recording?
It's been 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
So
it was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
July 2019.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about how you guys got pregnant and what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So with our first, Avie, we did have some fertility issues, and we were expecting it to take a long time actually to get pregnant with her. But with the help of some medication, we actually got pregnant with her in like the first month or two, which was just a huge blessing and surprise. And just to give a little backstory with my pregnancy with her, went super smoothly and easy. And I had a real positive mindset about the whole thing, wanted to go all natural. I had
Yeah.
a doula, all the things.
Yeah.
And I just never worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
Her birth was pretty amazing. It was a little chaotic because I showed up to the hospital for the second time, which is sort of a long story, but I showed up for the second time at 10 centimeters dilated and ready to push.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a little crazy at the time. They were hooking me up to everything, and I was pushing, and I pushed for an hour with her, and her heart rate started to drop a little bit. So they did an episiotomy really fast, and she just flew out like all at once after that. And thankfully she was perfectly fine, but she did have the cord around her neck at the time.
Oh, okay.
And the cord was very long and very skinny. Like I remember like that was commented on, but she was totally fine, didn't have any issues, came right to my chest. It was a beautiful like experience. Just a little chaotic, but
Yeah, I bet.
yeah, but I ended up being able to do it naturally and have my doula and all the things that I wanted. So I was just thrilled with it. But looking back on it, I did remember that comment that they made about the cord. And so when she was around 18 months old, we decided we were ready to try for another one. And I was prepared that we were probably going to have to take steps to get pregnant and maybe try the medication again. And we got pregnant the first month that we tried.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just shocked. And I found out at the doctor's office, actually, because I just went in for like a preconception visit or an annual or something. And they were like, is there a chance you could be pregnant? And so I was like, yeah, it is kind of around the time that I would start my period. So they did a pregnancy test, and I was in the room by myself, and they came in and gave it to me. And I was just like, oh, I was so happy and so surprised.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I just found out with the nurse,
Yeah.
in the OB's office. And I told my husband that night. And so when I left the doctor's office, I got in the car, and like I said, I was by myself. And I heard this song, Forever Young by Bob Dylan. I don't know if you know that song. But it has beautiful words to it. And I just immediately thought it was such a pretty like anthem for my baby.
Oh.
But now I look back on it, and it sort of feels foreshadowing, of her being forever young in heaven. And so I just remember that really clearly.
How did you tell Chris when you got home?
I think I snuck out and bought like a card and a onesie or something, and I told him, and my mother-in-law was there too, and so it was really sweet and special.
Yeah.
And of course we told our oldest and just called her baby and baby sister. Once we found out she was a girl, that was the only thing that we called her all the time. And so anyway, we had a really easy pregnancy with her too. And completely the same as with my first. And women hate to hear that, but I loved being pregnant, and I just I had a great time. I mean, I couldn't count on like one hand the number of times that I was really sick or anything like that.
Oh, you were one of those pregnancy unicorns, huh? That they talk about.
And people are always like, oh, we don't want to hear about it. But I just loved it. And I remember, so she was due September, actually right around Labor Day. So that summer felt like kind of mine and Avi's last summer, just the two of us.
Yeah.
And we just enjoyed it to the fullest. We went to the pool all the time with our friends, and just we're in the sun and just living our best lives.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. And I still think of it as just some of the happiest days of my life, that pregnancy and that time with her. I remember going swimming and just having her inside me and feeling so connected, Yeah, that was towards the end. And I was, still feeling great. The other thing that I should mention is my sister. I have 3 younger sisters, and me and my sister Emily are just 19 months apart. We're very close. All of
Mhm.
us are really close. But she was pregnant with her first baby the
Oh.
same time that I was pregnant, and she was 2 weeks ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
So we were together, we went through our whole pregnancies together, and that was really special for both of us too.
Is your family nearby locally?
No,
Oh,
I'm in Alabama and she's in Texas,
okay.
actually. And then my parents are a few hours away.
Okay. But kind of generally in the same-ish area. But that's kind of fun to have kind of a pregnancy buddy, I guess.
Yes, it was really sweet. And both girls.
Yeah.
And my whole family is girls. Nobody has yet to have a boy. So,
Really?
yeah, 4 girls in the family. And then I've had 3 girls. My sister has had 2
2
girls.
girls.
And so, yeah.
Oh, so fun. Girl
Yeah,
cousins, that's got to be fun.
it's the best. Yeah.
Okay, well, tell us then how things progressed and kind of what happened.
Yeah, so I had all normal ultrasounds, all normal visits. Amy would come with, this was so weird to think back before COVID, but she would come with me to all my appointments. And,
Yeah, it's
you
so different
know,
now. Yeah, but yes, that's so
yeah,
fun that she was
I'd
able to
bring,
come.
I'd bring my little 2-year-old and we would listen for her heartbeat. And it was just really sweet.
Was
And
she able to be there for like the anatomy ultrasound or
yeah, she was there when we found out that it was a girl.
so fun?
And yeah, she was excited as much as you can be at 2.
Mhm.
But it felt like she understood it, like, as much as she could. And so I think I was starting to get into my every 2-week appointments. And
Cuz
I
you
don't even remember what the last appointment was before all this happened, but everything was good. And
and they didn't note anything on any of the during any of those visits or even any of the scans, like nothing out of the
nope.
ordinary. We got a clean bill of health. She got a clean bill of health.
Yes, everything was great. So I sort of had the same mindset as I did with my first, of like, this is how women have been doing this for thousands of years. This is how things progress naturally. That was my mindset. So I never had a thought that anything could go wrong with it. So one weekend, I think this was a Sunday. It would have been July the 28th. My 2 younger sisters were visiting in town for the weekend. They were both in college at the time. So we spent like a great weekend together, and they took me out to the Cheesecake Factory that night and kept me up past my normal bedtime. And I had to get up and go to work the next morning. So at this time, I was working 2 days a week at a rehab hospital as a case manager.
Mhm.
So went home and was getting ready and going to bed. She was just moving like crazy, just kicking. And I remember a specific kick that I had my husband feel my stomach, and she kicked his hand so hard, and he was just like, wow, And I thought it was really sweet at the time. But then I was half the night just like feeling sick, and I thought, like, because of the Cheesecake Factory and I ate too much, and I was just like, I was up and down. She was moving a lot, and so that's sort of how the night went.
So the movement was not typical for her. How much she was moving.
Yeah, it was not typical for her to be like moving in the middle of the night like that.
Mhm.
And so much. But I just I don't know what I thought. I think I just thought that things were all off from me just eating too much or something.
Yeah.
But it really is one of the most traumatic things for me to talk about, because I just didn't know what she was going through at that time. That that she was in distress, and I just had no idea, and didn't think about it until later. So it's hard to, yeah, it's hard to think back on that.
Yeah.
But the next morning, I thought I felt her in bed when I woke up, but I don't know for sure if I did. But I got up and got ready for work, and got AV to daycare. And while I was at work, I was just sitting at my desk all morning, and so I just noticed that she wasn't moving like in her pattern that she would, because I was sitting still. I don't know if I would have noticed it if I had been up moving around and chasing baby around, but
Yeah.
I was very in tune with her. So I started to try different things. I was not worried. I was just drinking Coke. I was like just doing whatever they recommend. I laid down at one point and I was talking to my was in an office with like 4 other people. So I was kind of telling them, yeah, I don't know why she's not really moving around. I'm going to try all these different things. And so eventually around like lunchtime, so this had been going on sort of for the morning. At lunchtime, I called my doctor and she said, yeah, I think you've done everything that we would have told you to do. So why don't you just come in and we'll hook you up to the non-stress test. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And like, I swear every story that I hear about this or that I had heard at that point was as soon as you get to the hospital and they hook you up, the baby starts moving like crazy and you feel like an idiot for going in.
Yeah.
And so that's fully what I expected, was for that to happen. And I do remember like one moment I was walking back into the building after lunch and thinking, like, what if she was just dead inside of me? And it was like, that was too horrible to even like imagine. And I was like, there's no way that
Yeah.
that could be possible. But looking back on it, it's just so crazy that I even thought that, you know.
Oh. And what week are you about this time?
34 weeks exactly.
34 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So
what an interesting thought that crossed your mind. That's, yeah. You don't ever want to think about that.
no, it was like I just couldn't imagine that actually being true. So I just sort of pushed it off to the side, and I told my coworkers. I left and told them I would text them and let them know everything was fine. I called Chris on my way. I was like, I'm just going to go get checked because just for peace of mind, it's fine. He was at work in a different kind of area. So I drove up to the hospital by myself and went straight to where they hook you up for the non-stress test. Put the monitor on your belly and everything. And so I was in there and she just kept looking for it. It was a really sweet nurse, but wasn't picking it up. And it was just so difficult because my heart rate was like increasing as it wasn't being picked up. And so then I think the monitor was picking up my heart rate, and it was just like being very confusing because like I thought it was hers. And so I was trying to calm my heart rate down so that we could find hers. And it wasn't happening. And she used like a buzzer thing. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it like supposed to wake them up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If they're asleep, and you buzz your stomach with it. And I
Mhm.
remember her doing that a couple times and it just wasn't happening. And so she said, well, sometimes they're positioned weird where we can't pick it up. So we're going to send you down to ultrasound. So I was like, okay, still staying calm at this point. I was still by myself, and I just kind of rushed down a couple floors to the ultrasound. The same girl who had done all my ultrasounds with my other one, and she took me back after a few minutes, and I just felt a little bit in a panic to get in there, and so I didn't even tell Chris or anything what was going on yet. So I lay down on the thing and she pulled it up and it was just still. I can still see. It was just her little profile, but nothing was moving. She said, "Oh, she's all curled up. I'm gonna have to go get the doctor." And basically, like, ran out. And I was just laying there by myself, and I was just like, my head was like, "Oh God," you know, over and over in my head. That's all I was thinking. And my doctor came in and was like, "When's the last time you felt her?" And I was like, "I thought it was this morning." And she basically just shook her head, like, "No." And I was just like in shock. I was like, I think I just said, "What?" "What do you mean?" She was just moving last night, like a ton. Like, what could have happened? And she's like, "I don't know." My first thought was just that Avi won't have a baby sister. That was like, it's just crazy to me that as a mom, your first thought is for your other like child, not even like for yourself. I was just so excited for them to have that bond, that sister like bond that I've had with my sisters. And I know how special it is. And it just really broke my heart. And then, being there by myself, uh, they asked me where Chris was. I was like, "He's 30 minutes away." Like, I had to call him on the phone and tell him they can't find her heartbeat. And he, of course, got in the car and started driving. But I had to sit in a little like room. They moved me to another room to wait for him. And then
I was going to ask, were you just there? You were just there by yourself? Did anybody sit with you, or were they just in and out, or?
yeah, they were like taking turns kind of coming in and sitting and then leaving, and somebody else would come in. It was very blurry to me.
Yeah.
But it started to like, because at first I was in shock. And then I just remember, I don't know the sounds that you make, but just holding on to myself and just like all the emotion coming out. And at the same time, I was trying to call like my mom and my sister, and I couldn't get in touch with my mom for a little bit. So I called my two youngest sisters who had been staying with me, and they were actually driving home. And so they ended up turning around and coming back. And I got up with my mom, and it was just awful, having to tell family. I don't even remember my conversation with my sister, the one that was pregnant, like the same time.
Yeah.
It's just so traumatic to have to tell her. And so during that time I was waiting on my husband, I was talking to them, and just kind of, people were with me, but I almost just wanted to be alone, like in my own. I just didn't want to express that kind of emotion in front of those people that I didn't know really.
Yeah.
So finally he did come, and he was just very, I think, just trying to be strong for me, very stoic, and like, what do we need to do now, basically, which I had not thought about. And so my doctor came in and discussed with us plans for what to do. She had asked if we would come in, like, so this was Monday, I guess. She'd asked if we would come in the next night, because I don't think she was on call that night. And so we said, okay. And she just told us to go home and kind of gather our people and gather our things and like sort of make a plan, I guess.
And when you talked with your doctor, did she offer any explanation, or were you guys, because obviously this was a surprise, a complete surprise to you. Was there any sort of discussion about what happened or what could have caused her to pass away?
Not really. I mean, she said that in some cases you don't know why it happens. I think I remember her saying that, but that when she's born, we may be able to know, and that they would do all this blood work and like tests and see if they could find anything.
Okay.
So I do remember her saying that, but there was nothing, I don't think, in the ultrasound or anything. So it was just definitely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much it. We made the plan and we left. And I just remember we stopped at the bathroom and I saw myself like in the mirror. And I just was like, I didn't recognize my face. I've never seen myself look like that. And it was like a different person had come out of the doctor's office than who went in. And still, I drove myself home after that because Chris had his car and I had my car. And I drove myself home. And it's just crazy the things that you can do in the midst of trauma when you're in shock, I guess.
Yeah.
And your body is just sort of continuing on.
Yeah.
So I was just praying the whole time we were leaving the hospital that nobody was going to comment on my stomach. I remember that because I was just, I don't know what I would say to people and just trying to get out of there. And as I was driving home, I heard this lullaby song that I would listen to with my daughter, and I don't know, just these waves of like realization were coming at me of like, I'm not going to be able to sing this to her. I'm not going to be able to do these things that I wanted with her. But we did make it home, and actually 3 of my friends came over, my neighbor, Heather, we were really close. She came over, and my friends Emily and Ellen and my pastor, and they brought food, and everybody was just like there, like right after. And I was in shock still. And I remember changing clothes and seeing my stomach in the mirror at home. And I was just telling her that I was sorry. Like I don't know. I just felt sorry that it happened to her, even though I didn't feel it was my fault. I just still felt like I needed to apologize. I don't know. And one thing I forgot to say is I did call my doula on the way home, and she obviously was shocked, and thankfully she knew the bereavement counselor at the hospital where I was.
Oh, okay.
Knew her personally, got her my number. Her name's Marissa, and she was there for everything. And she called me while I was home. Marissa did, and asked me if I understood like what happens the longer you wait to give birth to your baby. And I mean, I didn't have any knowledge of stillbirth. And so she explained, and she was like, if you want to come in tonight, I can arrange that for you.
Oh,
instead of having to wait till the next
evening.
night.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I was having a hard time with that, just imagining like going to bed, sleeping, and they're going through the next day and still carrying her. It was just, that was hard. And she knew, Marissa, the bereavement counselor, actually knew my doctor personally too. So she reached out to her and was like, can you change this? And so they did. And that was really,
Oh, that is such a blessing.
it really was. I felt taken care of. And so, but we had to get like everything together that afternoon and head back up to the hospital.
Did you end up telling your daughter what was happening, or did you kind of just keep her not necessarily keep her in the dark, but kind of not kind of shield her from that?
Part is a little blurry. I don't think she was there when I got home. She was with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I saw her before I went back to the hospital. In that time, I think she was with other people.
Okay.
We just had a great support system of people who were helping us.
Yeah, it really did sound like everybody just came out of the woodworks to be there for you.
And it was just really special. Our pastor, prayed over us, and just spent some time with us before we went back to the hospital. And so, yeah, I didn't see Avi then. So basically, we had that conversation when we got home from the hospital. And so, yeah, we had to be back up there at 8 o'clock that night. And my parents had driven up. They lived like 3.5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember walking into like the parking garage and I saw them. And I didn't even realize it was them at first. And then I realized it and I just was like, of course it is. They're just always there in a in a crisis. They're just always there.
Oh.
And I was having all these memories as we were going up of Avi's birth. And it was the same elevator, the same waiting room, the same everything. And I was just like, such a different experience. But my parents went up with us and we had a nurse. Her name was Courtney. And she just felt like an angel for me. This hospital was just very trained, I guess, to deal with these situations. And she took me to the room and was just so compassionate and so just kind and thoughtful. And I remember getting just poked and prodded with all kinds of needles for blood work and all these things that they wanted to check, and just feeling like I can't believe I have to go through all this too. Yeah. But they started the Cervidil
because you had not, like, you weren't dilated, you weren't there, nothing was happening, no contractions, nothing were happening. Is that correct?
No, I was not ready.
Yeah,
not ready at all. And so they started with that. I can remember laying in the dark, and Chris was laying there somewhere. I just realized that she, like I said, these waves of sort of like understanding come slowly, not all at once. And I remember this wave of understanding that she was in heaven, but I wanted her to be here with us. And I was just laying there crying about that. And I remember like Courtney, the nurse, and Chris, they both just put their hands on me, and just really sacred moment. It was just the three of us there. And it was a very long night. Just it was very uncomfortable, very slow. They kept doing the Cervidil. The nurses changed out. She was the night shift nurse, and then I got a new nurse in the day. My parents were there the whole time. Michelle, a friend of mine, came to take like professional pictures. She's a photographer.
Oh, yeah.
So that was another friend's idea to have her come up, and it was just, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, that's so kind.
Yeah, I never would have thought of it. But now they're like my prized possession, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't think she came in until the actual birth. Mm-hmm. But throughout that whole day, like it was actually a whole night and then a whole day. It took, I guess that's like 24 hours.
Yeah.
My body was just like not ready to let go, I think. But it was a painful process. They did like the balloon they had to insert, and the Cervidil, I don't know what all. It's a little bit blurry, but.
And are you, I'm assuming that you do not have an epidural on, or are they giving you anything for pain or?
Yeah. So at first I wanted them to just give me like the pain medicine by IV.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what it's called, but it made me like extremely loopy.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of medications that'll do that for pain. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like pretty drunk, and it's just crazy looking back on it that even in a situation like that, we could laugh at some points, you know, and like as a family with my parents. And I don't even know, it was just a very long day. And then after a while, when I started feeling pain, they did place the epidural. I remember holding on to the nurse while they were doing it. one of the nurses was like a brand new nurse. So it was like, I think it was her first time being in there for a stillbirth. And she was so young. I think she probably just graduated college, you know.
Yeah.
And she was holding on to me while I was getting the epidural, and while the needle was going in, I was like pinching the back of her arm. And I didn't even like mean to. I just afterwards I was like, I am so sorry. And she was like, whatever you need to do, that's fine.
Oh,
It's like, I am so sorry. But I just remember that. And so the epidural, it was my first time getting one because I didn't have one with my older one, and it just made me completely dead. I could not feel my legs. Like it was like looking at my legs was like a different person's body. It's really weird. And it also made me cold and itchy, and I just really hated it. But I was grateful. I didn't want to feel the pain of everything, but it was a very, very strong epidural. And after that, I know at some point, Marissa, the bereavement counselor, talked to us about our plans, like what we wanted to do. If we wanted to cremate or bury or finding the funeral home and all those things. And so we did decide that we wanted to bury her. And I know everybody feels differently about it, but I just couldn't imagine I had to have that. I wanted her body whole, and I also wanted a place that I could go and like remember her. But you know, just decisions that you never think you would have to make. And I just remember being really emotional, talking to her about my sister being pregnant too, and how she was, and that Marissa said she would reach out to her and check on her. And it was just really sweet.
Yeah, that's amazing. Had some really great support. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I just talked to her about Avi and how are we supposed to tell her this. And she was just counseling us about that, saying just to be very honest with her and concrete, and just say that the baby died and the baby's in heaven, and not use any of the language of we lost her, or, you know, things that kids can't get confused about. And so I remember talking to her about that, and they just kept like flipping me back and forth with this huge peanut ball thing. Because I just could not move at all.
And I was going to say that is to kind of just keep you moving. Why were they flipping you over?
Yeah, like on my side, from one side to the other.
Yeah.
To keep me progressing.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you know you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And Marissa was a doula before, and also is a doula. So she knew all those things too, and she'd been to many births like this. So yeah, finally, I think it was around like 6:00 at night, they came to check me, and they were like, "Oh, her head is there. It's ready." And I sat up, and I just remember this feeling of just dread just came over me of like, what is this going to be like? This is going to be like, I actually am going to see her now. And it wasn't that I didn't want to see her. I just didn't know what to expect. And my mom was there, and Chris, and just all these women. I just felt surrounded by like all these strong, powerful women who were my doula and Marissa and the nurses, and it just felt like they were all kind of like holding me up, you know, through the birth. And whenever I had that moment of just dread, I just, you know, just threw up because I just felt overwhelmed. And just as I was about to push, and my mom just, like, I remember she just held a bag for me and was there for me, just like she's always been. And after that, I felt okay. And I think I pushed only like 2 or 3 times, and she was born very easily. And she came right to my chest. And it was just so different having experienced a live birth first to experience this, because the feeling was just that she was cold and gray and but big and like perfect body and everything, but just didn't feel like right. And I was in shock. I think I just remember Chris just sobbing like I've never seen him before. And my mom too. And looking back on it, I know now that like no matter, I might have heard this on your podcast, but no matter whether your baby is living or not, you're still flooded with those same hormones whenever your baby is born. So you feel that flood of oxytocin, the love hormone. And so I felt that, and it felt sort of like a dream kind of like quality of it. So it's just sort of hazy in my mind, but I just, yeah, I felt like love and just proud of her. And after a minute, they wrapped her up and gave her to me, and I just thought she looked just like Avy. She just, but she like Avy, and then all my sisters and me, we all had like white blonde hair as babies, all of us. And she had dark hair, so we were all kind of shocked by that. But it was like longish, and none of us had really had much hair as babies, and so she had a lot of dark hair. And like I said, my friend was taking pictures of the whole thing that I have, and me and my mom and Chris were taking turns holding her. And I think my mom left because she needed to go tell my dad, and my in-laws had gotten there at that point, Chris's parents. While she was gone, Marissa got everything to give her a bath and dress her, and they let me pick like what clothes I wanted her to be dressed in. Like they had these special little dresses that this ministry makes specifically for stillborn babies.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was called like Threads of Love. I think it was a beautiful pink dress with like this special lace all around the collar and the sleeves. And Chris just gave her her bath, just like he was giving one to our oldest. I mean, he just did it like without any hesitation. And I was just so grateful for that he was not like afraid to do that. And Marissa helped him and gave him the baby wash, and the smell of that like Johnson yellow baby wash brings it all back. And I remember like while he was giving her a bath, I still couldn't like move hardly, but I just reached my arm over and like washed her hair a little bit. And I just had this thought like, I'm supposed to be like washing her hair like this for the rest of her life, but this is going to be my only time, my only chance. So I did that, and I was grateful for it. It was just incredibly sad, the bath part. And they also gave me a lamb. I don't know if other people have gotten this, but it's a stuffed like animal lamb, and it had a tag on its collar that said, "I know that I can never replace your baby, but if you need someone to hold, I'll be there." And I just like cried when I got, because I knew, like in that moment, I knew that I would be holding on to that lamb like a lot. And I still keep her, the lamb on my bed to this day. So I was holding that lamb while they were doing everything with her. I remember that.
I was going to ask if, how big was she? Did they weigh her? And yeah, how big was she?
Yeah, she was 5 pounds and 5 ounces and 19 inches long. So she would have been probably pretty big if she had been full term, because this was at 34 weeks. And I forgot to mention that as soon as she was born, they saw the cord was in a true knot. And also around her neck, and also was very long and skinny, just like my first.
With Avy. Oh. so it was in a true knot, and it was around. Was it quite compressed against her neck? Did they say anything about that?
Not really. I didn't see it at, like, when it was like that. I don't know how many times it was all wrapped around. I just know that I think because it was so skinny and long, the knot was just very tight, had gotten tightened.
Yeah.
So it really haunts me that night that was because apparently a true knot forms really early on, or a knot can happen in the umbilical cord early on in the pregnancy, when they're tiny enough that
They can move around enough. Is that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yes, but not always does it actually cause a problem. Like, some babies are born with it in a knot and they're fine. But I guess when she got to a certain size, in that night, it was compressed, and that's why she was so active and in distress. And I didn't know at the time. So that's something that I do want people to be aware, is not to scare anyone or anything like that, but just to be aware that it's not always a decreasing in movement, but sometimes if it's a very chaotic kind of frenzied like movement can also be a sign. And so that's what had happened. And I am grateful in a way that we do have a reason, because I know a lot of people don't ever get any explanation. So yes, that's what.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Tate, will you tell me why you guys chose the name Elowen for her name? It's such a I think it's such a beautiful name.
Yeah, well, like I said, my older one is Eveline, and that was a French baby name that we found that I just thought was pretty, and so I thought it needed to go with Eveline, and I found it like a Cornish baby, like Cornwall, England area. They have these really unique kind of names, so I found that was on a baby list of those names. We were actually watching the show Pole Dark at the time. I don't know if anybody anybody knows what that is, but that's where it's set in that area. And so I just thought it went Aveline and Elowen together. It was very pretty.
Yeah.
At this point, she was all dressed and swaddled and hat and everything. And I was holding her, and my dad came in, and he got to hold her, and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and everybody was just really amazing. It was a very special time. My sisters also got to come in. They were like 20 and 22 at this time. I just felt like they were very mature and just, I don't know, it was just very special having them there. And we actually FaceTimed my other sister that was in Texas. They wouldn't allow her to fly because she was 36 weeks at this time with my niece.
Yeah.
So that was just really hard on her. But we did let her see her through FaceTime. And at this point, I just felt this pride over her and showing her to everyone. It was just, I don't know, my baby.
Yeah.
I wanted everybody to see her. And my aunt and uncle came up too, my dad's brother, and that was really special. I feel like they've always been there for big moments in my life, and this was one of them. And Marissa supported like my family through all of that. After everybody got to see her and hold her a little bit, we asked to be alone with her, and Chris took a video of me just singing to her a couple songs that I just really wanted to be able to sing like one time that I'd always sung to Avie. So I sang a song called Close Your Eyes, and Amazing Grace too. And I love that we have video of that. And I was just remember like rocking her as best that I could through that. And after that, I think we decided to give her back to the nurses. So this was like 8:00 at night.
And she was born at around 6. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think we had her for a couple of hours, and then we were like exhausted because I don't think we slept hardly the night that I was in labor with her. But they told us that we could see her again, like the next day, that they would put her in a cool place. So that did make us feel better. And I guess everybody went home, and they moved us to another part of the hospital that was, I guess, just for women, not just in the labor and delivery.
Yeah. So kind of like a women's health unit or
yeah,
something.
Yeah. And I just remember that me and Chris, we slept in that hospital bed together, just like
Yeah.
like little sardines. But just holding each other and being there with each other. And it was like, we are really the only two that can truly understand what we're losing here, what we're going through. And I felt very close to him and very grateful to have him. And so the next morning I was ready. We wanted to go home, and we had them bring her to us in a little basket. She was in a little basket. And it was just hard for me because she looked different a lot, like had changed overnight.
Right.
Even though she was in a cool place, she just didn't look the same. And Chris wanted to keep her for a while, so we did, and he prayed over her, and we just had like quiet, like kind of moments together. And my doctor came in and talked to us, and she was great through everything, and talked to us about counseling and medications and all those things, and was taking care of us. And then I remember then, taking her away, and I just was upset not knowing where she was going to be, who was going to come and get her, how was this all going to work, is she going to be alone, just all those like really sad, unnatural. It's just so unnatural, you know.
It is.
To not be with her. But at the same time, I think we were ready to go home and be with AV and be with our family. And so I remember Chris went to get the car. And so when we were discharged, and the nurse, pushed me out, and it was just, I was trying to hold it together, but I was like, being wheeled around in front of all these people.
Yeah.
Going out of the hospital and just being empty-handed with that box and the lamb and the memory box of things, and just sobbing, to the car, and just driving home, kind of like very surreal feeling, going home by ourselves. But I will say, when we got home, the whole house had been cleaned and taken care of by all these women in our church who had just shown up and took care of everything. There was food, there was care packages. They had gotten all the baby stuff that was like strewn around the house, because we had everything like mostly set up.
Yeah.
And they had like gathered it and put it in the nursery for me, which our nursery is like connected to our bedroom. So it was just like a door, between us. But they had put everything in there, and it was such a blessing that they were just doing like what they could do for me, And I remember seeing AV and like talking to her. And when I got home, was around her nap time, and I remember just rocking her and being able to actually hold her in the way that I hadn't been able to with my big belly. I could actually hold her and rock her to sleep, and that was really a balm to my heart, in that moment. And she was just amazing in her personality, and she kept things joyful in the middle of everything. And I had friends that drove like hours down to visit, and family that all came from far away. The number of people I wish I could thank, but I just can't. I did send a lot of letters and things after, and that was healing for me, to just write out like, I know that you did this, even though you might not even know that I know, but thank you for showing anybody. yes, anybody that acknowledged her and just showed up was such a ministry to me.
Yeah.
And then I want to say, like, the next day we had to go to the funeral home, and that was pretty awful. I just have to say,
It's pretty awful. Yeah. I
it
agree
was
completely
it
with
was
you.
to have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I should probably mention I've never had anybody close to me die. Like, not even all my grandparents are even still living.
Yeah.
So this was like completely foreign territory for me. And so we went in there, having to plan a baby's funeral. And I just remember them like driving us around in a golf cart to find like our plot that we wanted to bury her in. And I was just like, this is not happening.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. You're like, yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be happening. It's so unnatural.
I mean, yeah, it just felt like a dream or a movie or something. But we did end up finding a very beautiful, peaceful spot that we loved.
Is the
And
cemetery close to where you guys are at?
yeah, it's probably like 15 minutes
Oh, okay.
away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so not far, not too bad. Yeah, we went through the planning, and it was just our church ended up like pitching in, and I think they covered like the whole cost of
Oh,
the funeral and the burial, and it's not cheap. Like
yeah. It's not.
it's
That
crazy.
is so kind. That is so kind of them.
It was just amazing, a blessing, and then we didn't have to worry about that part, and so we planned everything out, and I think it was maybe 3 days, 4 days after that we had the funeral, and, my milk came in the day of the funeral.
And,
It's
it's just
just
such
brutal.
yeah. Feels like a kick you while you're down type of a thing. Yeah.
Yes, it was really hard, and it rained, and I had prayed that it wouldn't rain, but when it did rain, it just sort of felt like heaven was just kind of like crying with me. It almost felt appropriate at the time. Um, and I had no idea that Marissa from the hospital was going to come to the funeral.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
she actually came and she FaceTimed my sister in Texas through the funeral. So she was able to be there through that. And I forgot to mention too that we did have a viewing like in the casket beforehand just for like family.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandparents and all our sisters and brothers. That was really not good for me because I did not know she was going to look so different. You know how they do all the
Yep. Some
I
makeup
didn't
or whatever. Yeah. And
I was not prepared for that, and so I just sort of cried through the whole viewing.
oh,
But she was dressed in a beautiful we picked out like a white, long, almost like a christening dress
mm-hmm.
looking, and a white bonnet that matched it, and we let Avie see her, which I was conflicted about, but Chris really wanted her to be able to say that she had seen her sister. And so she did come in and see her and put a little like teddy bear in the casket with her.
Oh.
And she just was saying, why is the baby sleeping? I want to see the baby. And afterwards, she just kept saying that she wanted to see her again. She wanted to see her. And I was very upset by that.
Yeah.
But also just, I think it was the right decision that she was able to see her. And so that was how the viewing went. And then we had the service, and we probably had like 30 or 40 people we had invited, and it was just a graveside like service. And our pastors spoke, and Chris actually got up and said some things. I wish I could remember more what he said, but it was really brave of him and really special. And he carried her casket down there, and I think that has always stayed with him. Really painful memory, but like something that he needed to do. So it was a beautiful service, and but it was just so hard to leave. I remember everybody was leaving and we were kind of parked in front of everybody, so we had to go, and I just like did not want to leave her there. And we didn't see her actually buried or anything. We just left before they did all that, but I did not want to go. But we did, and we had a reception afterwards, and everyone took care of everything, and everybody did a great job with it. And then my niece, Blythe, was born exactly a month to the day after Elowen. Yeah. And that was just a really precious gift to our family. Like at that time, like we just felt like we were carrying this sorrow and then this joy, like right together at the same time. Like we were walking through that together. And she is just, I have a special like relationship with her. And people always have asked me how if it was really hard, for me to like be around her. And I don't know, I never felt that. I just always felt like, I just love you so much. And I'm so thankful for your life and that you were okay. And, the age that she is will always remind me of what age Ellen would be. Like right now, she's 2.5 and she's starting to talk or say sentences and things and just be a lot more like her own little person. But I remember thinking like even back then, like I'm going to remember even when Blythe is graduating high school and getting married and all these things. Ellen would be that age too. So it's like a special reminder to me.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get all the way into like pregnancy after loss, but I just wanted to say that immediately after I didn't want another baby. I just felt like my arms were empty, and Chris agreed with me. And so we never touched the nursery. We just left it.
You did.
Like it was. And I just felt this strong, like, conviction that another baby should use all this stuff and wear all these clothes. And, just, this is just sitting here.
Yeah.
And so I just prayed. And we waited a little while. And then about 5 months after Elowen died, I got pregnant again and had a very extremely anxious
Oh, it's so anxiety ridden. It's so, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was very hard. But my doctor was amazing in the fact that she referred me to a high risk doctor like immediately at my 6-week appointment follow up. So I was able to get in and talk to him about everything that happened and like talk about a plan for the future. And he was the best doctor I could have had through that. And there was really nothing they could do except monitor with this. So apparently there is an ultrasound machine that can see the blood flow through the cord.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's like a higher tech ultrasound. Yeah. So that's what they would check for.
Every time that you guys came in, you just look and make sure there was enough blood.
But it still didn't give me that much peace of mind because it happened so suddenly. It was extremely sudden.
Right.
So it was kind of like, it was very hard, but I did make it through that. And Avi was just amazing. I just have to say too, like at 2 years old, she was with our grief after, she was just so in touch with me. And when I would cry and get upset, she would even like bring me that lamb, the lamb that they gave me at the hospital.
Yeah. That's so sweet.
I just want to remember that too, that she helped us, make it through that time. And that we did find, just healing through her and through another like support group that I went to as well, where I was able to sort of share my story like this. And I think that every time I tell it and every time anyone tells their story of heartache and trauma, that it does help to heal you and heal your brain and your heart in some way.
Yeah.
So I do really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, and that you're giving people the opportunity to heal through telling it.
We hope that's the case. Tate,
Yes.
thank you so much. That was beautiful, and I'm so glad you were able to remember and tell about those things that you want to remember through time. Is there any last thing that you would like to say about your little daughter, Elowen?
We were going to call her Win. It's kind of like her nickname too. So when I think about her, I just say my Win, and that I can't wait to meet her and love her in heaven, but that I will carry her with me every day here, and that I'm so grateful for how she's changed me and grown me in ways that I never would have done. Yeah, I'm one day closer to holding her.
Thank you again.
Thank you.